Lesson 11, 26th February. Lesson 11, 26th February. Muhammad, peace be upon him, the last and the final prophet. Muhammad, peace be upon him, the last and the final prophet, by ex-brigadier Mustansir Billah. Brothers and sisters, the subject today is Al-Quran curbs fornication and adultery. The subject today is Quran curbs for fornication and adultery. As regards the rights of women, it may be new for the secular that all the teachings of the Prophet are oriented and geared to the benefit, comfort, happiness, and the well being of each and every individual and the entire humanity in this world, so also the hereafter, and the entire humanity in this world, so also the hereafter. The teachings of the Prophet, peace be upon him, adhere to the following which I am going to cover. 1. Quran desires the mankind to procreate and every family to have a pure, clean lineage, unlike animals, pigs, dogs, etc. And the voluptuaries addicted to luxury, sensual pleasures, who have made themselves undeclared gods by declaring the right and wrong against the values ordered by Allah and the Prophet, must not forget Allah created you, O men, initially from cheap clay Adam, thereafter every individual from a dirty drop of semen. Then he made you couples, that procreation continues till the doomsday. And he knows well, Allah knows well in advance what's to happen. No female conceives nor gives birth without his knowledge and preference, and he controls life and death. No person advances in age or his life cut off, but people haggle about the cause and effects. Whether change is taken as a direct action in recreating the atoms in different states of instantaneous being, or every change as a succession of events with no secondary causality. As per Surah Al-Fatir, verse 11, Allah is the prime and only cause of all that takes place. All is saved in a book, metaphorically, and it is all extremely easy for Allah. As per 35 Surah Al-Fatir, verse 11, Allah is the prime and only cause of all that takes place. All is saved in a book, metaphorically, and it is all extremely easy for Allah. Allah has raised mankind and structured the human society on couples, spouses, man and woman, bounded as husband and wife. Idea fixe of the 20th century regarding liberty, freedom, the rights of the individuals, the right to do whatever one likes with one's own body, secular values, and lifestyles totally secular, worldly orientation of living, resulted in millions of men and women clamber out of the strewn wreckage of their marriages. Thereafter, divorce, separation, single parent houses, and other forms of familiar disaster overtook millions in a process of few decades. The modern society thus reeks with the adverse effects of these malapropos combinations like lesbians, gays, open marriages, single parent houses, where the husbands keep changing rounds precisely like animals, dogs, tomcats, and pigs, without looking into the actual causes that is lack of spiritual recourse and godlessness, without looking into the actual causes, that is lack of spiritual recourse and godlessness, malcontent, dejected, frustrated, and lonely and rebellious people in millions initiated the traumatic process of changing the social sphere and dashed to find shelter, solace, peace in all sorts of experiments in life, which resulted in nefarious, malodorous, that is, foul and highly improper combinations, equations of living other than as devoted, committed, and responsible husbands and wives. Apart from lesbians, gays, these included unmarried couples. The absolute ruination, paralysis, ineffable, absolutely undesirable failure of the modern social sphere is demonstrated, can be seen in the incredible proportion of single parent families. On average, as of 2002 AD, more than 80% children in USA, UK, Europe are living with single parents. On an average, as of 2002 AD, more than 80% children in USA, UK, Europe are living with single parents. As a matter of interest, presently 45% children are born to unmarried mothers in these countries. The Western society is reeking with the adverse, ghastly psychosocial effects of these pathetic combinations. Social phobia and social boredom are the outcome of breaking up of the nuclear family, that is, husband, wife, and two children. It may be noted that not only have the human beings been created as couples, there are the opposites in every creation of Allah. There are women who do not conceive and those who conceive, those who deliver and who cannot, the long living and the short living man, and other animal objects, the sweet water and the brackish, things which sink and those which float, the night and the day, and so is the good and the evil. Piety that leads to the pleasure of Allah and to heaven, and disobedience, transgression that earns his wrath and leads to hell. I repeat, piety that leads to the pleasure of Allah and to heaven, and disobedience, transgression that earns his wrath and leads to hell. Allah alone has created you, and it is Him alone who is worthy of worship, obedience. The others whom the disbelievers, mushrikeen, invoke for help haven't created anything at all, not even a membrane of a dead stone. They can't hear your prayers. They can't hear your prayers. And if they do, they can't be of any assistance at all. All your demigods, gods in human form, and demigods will disavow your shirk pantheism on the doomsday, and none would elaborate things to forewarn you as Allah has. The bloody minded people must understand, accept the reality, the truth that they are totally dependent on Allah, and Allah is absolutely free of all needs, doesn't require anything from them, and don't consider yourself to be powerful or indispensable. Their graveyards are full of indispensable people. I repeat, and don't consider yourself to be powerful or indispensable. The graveyards are full of indispensable people. Allah can lift off entire mankind and replace it with a new creation which will be obedient as the angels. But He permits the good and the evil and the mankind capable of both to exist, that people obey Him voluntarily, and to reward or punish them as per their deeds, and to reward or punish them as per their deeds. That the disbelievers, quizzling collaborators against Allah, sinful, flay and flout the word of Allah and disobey Him blatantly, openly, and unhesitatingly all their lives, and yet appear to flourish and thrive. This doesn't bother the knowledgeable at all. This doesn't bother the knowledgeable at all. And let not the believers live with false and distorted perceptions that the world is a hugger-mugger, a bedlam, chaos, and there is none to grip them, and they can live an unmolested, visceral life. Because, as per verse Surah 35, Al-Fatir, verse 16, if Allah prefers, He can remove you off from the face of the earth. He can remove you off from the face of the earth, eliminate the mankind, or put it at a backstage and establish another Genesis. That was Surah 35, verse 16. Excellent and perfect in obedience as the angels. Every individual is a life renter of the worldly things, whereas the deeds shall stick to man till eternity. Every individual is life renter of the worldly things, whereas the deeds shall stick to him till the eternity. Opportunities to perform the evil are actually trap laid for those inclined to devilish deeds. These paths, opportunities, and freedom are not a golden spoon in the mouth, but a knife in the back, of which you are forewarned well in advance. Remain in your shoes, in your limits, for when Allah grips, punishes, none can come to rescue. Man has established a right for visceral bodily pleasures, diabolical lifestyle in the name of freedom, liberty, and rights of the individual. Communities had adopted such subcultures and cultures earlier too, which Allah demonstrated as a lesson for the mankind. But some numbskulls understand the purpose of things that man has made, manufactured, and use all the facilities in the world provided by Allah to their own visceral purpose, but do not recognize the purpose of their own creation. Recognize the purpose of their own creation, that is, to be voluntarily subservient to Allah. That is, to be voluntarily subservient to Allah. There is no duplication, superfluousness, wastage in Allah's creation. He hasn't created the man and woman to replicate each other. Fin Diesel, end of the 20th century, women's lib has been stretched to an unnatural duplication of the different roles, not rights. Allah has given the women and men. The 20th century women's lib has been researched to an unnatural duplication of the different roles, not rights, Allah has given to the women and men. Equal rights have been inextricably mixed up, confused with same roles to psychosocial devastating effects and suicide of brilliant communities. I repeat, equal rights have been inextricably mixed up, confused with the same roles to psychosocial devastating effects and suicide of brilliant communities. But Allah has a grand scheme of things, of running the universes, else bringing mankind or a certain community or a certain communities to an abrupt or gradual end isn't problematic for Allah to the least. He has well demonstrated his capability to destroy people within seconds. Once he grips, disbelievers sinful cannot backtrack to reformation, and it's all easy for him. And once they are up the spout, in trouble on the doomsday, none will bear anyone's load, burden of sins. Even the dearest would avoid contact. The prophets has been sent to forewarn, to be convincing for those who are not hedonists, those who fear Allah without having seen Him and offer praise, salah, and have it taped. He who reforms does it to his own good, and have it taped. He who reforms does it to his own good. No favor to the Prophet, peace be upon him, or to Allah. You will see it, the good and the evil you have done. When everything returns to Allah, you will see it, the good and the evil you have done. When everything returns to Allah, and Allah unfolded the universes with the first Big Bang, He'll fold up all His creation and their deeds with the second Big Bang. Allah would decide the disputes between people and restore the interpersonal rights of each by making those who committed excesses compensate the wronged, harmed, victimized. I repeat, Allah would decide the disputes between people and restore the interpersonal rights of each by making those who committed excesses compensate the wronged, the harmed, victimized. And the spiritual living shall not be created as the refulgent light and grave darkness are the same, nor are the cold and warm alike in effects, and the spiritually life shall not be created as the refulgent light and grave darkness are the same, nor are the cold and warm alike in effects, and neither are the spiritually living the same as the spiritually dead, and neither are the spiritually living the same as the spiritually dead. Allah would differentiate between everything, having the most slender differences to an infinite degree of perfection. Allah can convey His message to anyone He considers appropriate, even to the dead. But none can convince those who have enclosed themselves in the graves of their ill fated, cussed, rigid attitude of closed minds and hearts. But none can convince those who have enclosed themselves in the graves of their ill fated, cussed, rigid attitude of closed minds and hearts. Those who have decided not to listen. Those who have decided not to listen. The Prophet, peace be upon him, has been sent to convey the message of Allah, order the good, and proscribe, prohibit, condemn the evil, and forewarn the people. He can't convert by force. The Prophet, peace be upon him, has been sent to convey the message of Allah, order the good, and proscribe, prohibit, condemn the evil, and forewarn the people. He can't convert by force. The Prophet, peace be upon him, stated, there is nothing better than marriage for two loving people. Tirmidhi. The Prophet, peace be upon him, stated, There is nothing better than marriage for two loving people. Trimzi. That's all for today. Shall continue with these lessons on inshallah 28th of February. Inshallah, Allah be willing. Till then, please pray for me, ex-brigadier Mustansir Billah.